Okay, ready to move into Access Pause and Practice 1-3, which is the last part of this first chapter. And I want to just hit a couple things. You might notice that I resize these by coming up here and double clicks for readability. I could also like click and drag to make these easier to read and so forth. I also want to point out the importance of spelling. A good example would be like, for instance, if I misspelled the word insurance on Roy Baxter, and then I went to look for all the insurance agents, that would give me some problems because he would be left out because insurance was not recognized. It was misspelled. So you got to be real careful about garbage in, garbage out. Obviously, if you gave Bob Lingle a $1,500 salary versus $15,000, that would cause its own set of problems as well. So what we're going to do, instead of typing in the remainder of our records, we're going to bring them in from another source. So, and as you can see, this is an Excel workbook that has some additional records. Looks to be 11 of those. And what I want to point out to you that's very, very important is the first row, which is our field names. And you'll notice the camel case and everything else that is here. So before you do this on your own problems, it's very, very important that if you go back to design view, that these match. You have to, at least the ones that you have. So if I were to, for instance, try to import this file into my table and the word department was misspelled on my field names, okay, then when it would try to import department column F into my database, it would crash. I mean, it would basically say we can't do it. So if you run into an error as you complete this process, you have probably, in fact, I would bet 99%, misspelled one of these field names, which means you would have to get this spelled correctly, save it, and you also have to make sure that this table is closed when you do this, and then redo your importing process. So just be real careful with that, and it's a couple key points. So what we're going to do, though, is I'm going to go ahead and close this spreadsheet, and we're going to go ahead and go to external data to bring this in. And you can see as far as importing, we can choose a new data source, and in this case from file. And this one is an example of bringing in an Excel spreadsheet. So there are other options depending on what type of file you are bringing in. This one's an Excel workbook, okay? So I click on this and I have to go find that particular file. So again, if you're working on one of your projects, you'll probably have to download this file and save it to your desktop or to a location of your choice. For me, I am going into my data files, and there's that Central Sierra data file, and I bring that in. Now, that allows for location. Then you have three choices. Do you want to create a brand new table? Well, we already have the employees table, so we're going to do what's called append. This is the one that it is critical that those field names match. We only have one table, so it automatically pulls employees up. And since we're ready to launch the wizard. And it's starting to bring in those files. These are from the Excel workbook. And you'll notice that it found those field names in row 1. And we're going to see where in a minute if it matches. And then we just say employees, that's the table it's importing to, and finished. And then I never save my steps. So that one works seamlessly, which means none of my field names were misspelled. And you can see that I now have 16 records in this particular data sheet view for employees. Okay. So again, I've already adjusted these, and you notice how I can read everything, so we're really in good shape. But if I were to go to some of these buttons again, notice how next record takes me to where I want to go. The last record jumps me to the bottom. I can also type in which record I want to go to if it's 7. Okay, and all right, so I want to go to 16. Let's go to the end record again, which is record 16. Okay, I want to delete the 16 and type 7. Let's see here. Oh, okay, and that's what I mean by that is you come right over here, delete that, type 7, press enter, so you can do it that way as well. And then of course you can go back to the first record if you choose. Okay, so I can also change the order of these particular ones. So like the word title, if I wanted to move it, I can click on this, and this sometimes is a little bit tricky. And then I want to click, hold, and drag, and I want to move it to the left of branch. So from here, once you have it selected, click, hold, and drag, and you make sure that that line moves to the front and it switches places. Then if I wanted to move the start date to the end, okay, this one's a little bit different. You just got to make sure you get it there and there to the right, and then you can switch columns. Changing font is easy. So if I just want to go to my Home tab, notice you don't have to select anything, but I can change my font size to 12 to make it more readable. Does everything, and I can change this to a font, and we're going to choose Arial. And again, notice my widths there. I'm going to resize those so I can read everything a little bit clearer. Make sure I can read my column names as well. All right, make sure I can see all of my labels and read everything as I need to. All right, now because I made some changes to those, that kind of stuff does have to be saved, so be aware of that as well. If I wanted to change the row height, I select any row, and I'm going to right click on, that's called the row selector, right click, and I can do row height. I'm going to make it 17. Click OK, and that changes all of my rows. Another thing I could do is I could do field width on these. I could right click, and there's field width as well that I could make those. And there's best fit, or you can make them whatever you like. So you can do multiple ones as well if you choose. Another thing that you can do is let's select the employee ID column. Let's do that one. I could go here to text formatting, and I could do center, and that centers everything. I could hide a field if I didn't want to see it. So I select the field. I go to Home and my Records group. And I want to select under More, I'm going to hide fields, and that will hide a field. I can also go to Home and Records, click my Totals button, which will give me a Totals row down here. And for instance, I could go down under my monthly salary, kind of like we did last chapter in Excel, and I could do the total sum of what our salary expense is going to be for this particular month. I can click anywhere in here. Another thing that we can do is we can go to Home and our text formatting. Of course, we can do colors and things like that, but this is pretty cool under the launcher. I can do an alternate background color, and I want to do under blue-gray, which is right here. We're going to do lighter 80%, which is a little bit darker. That's every other row. Okay, so that'll change the way that looks, makes it a little bit easier. I can uncheck my grid lines for horizontal. So the only change is that. I can do my grid line colors. I can change that. And I'm going to choose under blue-gray, darker 80%, darker 25% rather. It's that one. So that's my vertical ones because I turned the horizontal ones over. And then I'm going to click OK, and that changes the entire readability. And then you can see if I click 102, how it shows the one that I have selected as I go through. Okay, really dark blue. And then I save it, and we are ready to roll as far as formatting the table. So exporting is a big deal, and then some of those extra ones with grid lines and resizing and total fields and so forth is very, very important. Again, I can't emphasize enough the importance of spelling and matching those field names up. You've got to make sure that they do match. If I did not include one of the fields, it would create it for me. And if I had data in that other spreadsheet that didn't have anything in it, it would leave it blank in my database table. So be sure to read that section. It's 1.4 in your textbook. Okay, with that said, Access Chapter 1 is pretty easy. Again, the key is being very careful with your spelling. So keep that in mind as you move on to your projects.